Definitely rolling. So I'm Todd Mosier with SportTracks. This is Alan Moss, who is our fantastic and fabulous blog writer as well as Twitter community manager. So, hello.
Hi, guys. Hi, Todd.
Hello. It's an exciting day for us here.
Every day is an exciting day.
Every day is an exciting day. It's a particularly exciting day because we're going to be talking about her experience at the Boston Marathon.
Whoa.
So fortunately, we've just loaded up some of her data onto SportTracks Movie. We're apparently importing it now.
Yes.
Ooh, exciting. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you prepared for the Boston Marathon?
Well, of course. So I did a 16-week training program, mostly using the training program recommended on BAA's webpage. I used the intermediate plan and did...
You didn't do the advanced?
No, not yet.
Why not?
Maybe for the next one. I couldn't decide between the two. The intermediate one had mileage that I was more comfortable with running. So, but I did all the speed workouts and mileage progression from that training program for the most part. There are some exceptions. Yeah, it was pretty much the program that I followed. I modified some of the tempo runs. Those are all recommended to be at marathon goal pace. There were some I did at lactate threshold goal pace to prepare for a half marathon, which I did about 4 weeks out from the race, I think. No, maybe 6. I'll have to look back at my SportTracks data. But after that marathon, I switched to pretty much following the training program word for word.
Why did you switch to the lactic acid threshold level for the specific workouts?
Just to build a little more speed to go a little faster in the half marathon. And then after that, I kind of switched to rest mode and just getting more familiar with and comfortable with marathon goal pace and what it felt like. So I started doing all my tempo workouts. There's a lot of different ways you can define that term.
Yeah.
I had marathon goal pace after the half marathon, which was in March. I think it was about 6 weeks before.
And what was your what was your goal pace?
For the half marathon?
Yeah, for the both. Because what's the difference between your lactic acid threshold rates versus your marathon goal pace?
Well, marathon goal pace is a lot slower. My lactate threshold pace is around 6:40, 6:45. Okay. So a little faster than my half marathon goal pace. And that number is just determined by a PR that I ran in the fall in a mile race. Although you can choose any recent PR, really, from the mile to the marathon. That was one that went particularly well, a race that went particularly well, so I was kind of eyeballing it. Trying to, oh no, there's an error in my data. Anyway, yikes. Okay, we'll look at that. More on that later.
Oh no, we're not going to show that to anyone.
No, okay.
We're going to hide that.
Okay.
All bugs get buried.
But where were we? Oh, talking about lactate threshold. Yeah. So of course my marathon pace is much slower than that. My goal is to run the marathon around 7:40. I think best case scenario it would have taken 7:35 pace to run the time I wanted to run in Boston this year, which I came up a little short on, but pretty close. Close enough that I was happy with it. So
yeah, so there was just about 55 seconds between your lactic threshold and your marathon goal pace.
Right. It's pretty big.
Cool. So do I understand? Do you want to read a little bit from your blog post that you've recently released, or would you like to wing it?
I can read from the blog post. Why don't we?
An interpretive reading would be, I think everyone would really appreciate. With mucho gusto.
Ooh, in Espanol. All right, let's pull up the blog post, shall we?
And what is your blog that you keep?
So I write a blog called The Fast and the Fabulous. It started originally as a gear review blog. The concept was to review running apparel and gear based on both its functionality and its fashion forwardness. In recent history, it's evolved more to just a kind of here's what's going on in my racing life. It's been a while since I did some gear reviews there, but that is where its roots are and why it's called The Fast and the Fabulous.
So what section are you going to be reading from so we get a little context of where you're at?
It's a two-part post. I can read any number of parts of it for you. The first part is kind of how I got to zeroing in on a goal, why the goal for the year was Boston, what I hope to get out of the race and what I did to get there, all the way from my motivation to run based on what happened last year to that morning leading up to getting to the race. The second part, the second post, is kind of a mile-by-mile breakdown of the run itself and the plan that I followed on race day.
Did you talk about your goose scenario?
I did. I mentioned that in the first part of my two-part Boston Marathon blog post. Hold on, let me pull that up for you.
I mean, you have to admit this is I think a classic mistake that happens, unfortunately. Maybe not classic, but unfortunate.
Rookie and unfortunate. I still can't believe it happened. I'm really grateful that it turned out fine, and I hope all the strangers that generously donated goose to my cause had really awesome runs at the Boston Marathon. Okay, so that's the second part.
It's amazing when we really put her on the spot here, and we didn't give her much time to prepare. So forgive any technical difficulties or delays as we go through this.
All right.
Certainly, as with anything, it gets better the more you wait for it.
That's what I always say. All right, would you like to hear the part about the goose?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And with enthusiasm. So
first, I give you guys a little backstory, mostly what I've already said about the training program that I followed, what my time goal was, kind of how I felt leading up to things, how things went in my tune-up half marathon. Okay, so we finished that whole review of what that journey to getting to the start line looks like. That takes us to race day morning. Here we go. All right, fast forward to race day. On Monday morning, I woke up and realized that I had slept through the entire night, the night before the Boston Marathon. This was a shocking first to me, and I was actually a little alarmed that it might be a sign of inadequate hydration, since I never once got up to pee during the night. I got out of bed, began my lengthy getting ready process, the most time-consuming part of which is applying 1 million temporary tattoos, or 5, as the case was on that day. There was a knock at the bathroom door. When I opened it, a pallid-looking Allie Bigelow, my friend who used to be my ride to Boston Common that day, announced that she had food poisoning and would be unable to drive me. I'm 95% sure that what came out of my mouth in response to this was something of at least half-assed concern and sympathy, but the response that resounded inside of my head was more like, OMG, you have got to be effing kidding me. What am I going to do now? Allie, being the wonderful friend that she is, told me that a cab was on its way for me. So I hastily donned my disposable mom jeans, which were generously gifted to me by Allie's friend, whose house we were staying at, and my bedazzled Target clearance rack, little girl's size extra large hoodie, grabbed a bagel for the road, and I was off. Felt a little forlorn as I walked into Boston Common alone, force feeding myself the bagel, which had now been dropped on the floor of the cab. And what I'm sure is most unflattering manner. Within 10 seconds of arriving, I heard someone loudly state my name. I looked up from a cab floor bagel to find that it was already being hugged by my friend Alex Farner. You guys should read his blog. He's a professional trail runner for the Nike Elite team. He's kind of a big deal. This was a good sign. I continued to feel more at ease as I boarded the bus and chatted with my new BFF and seatmate, Bob, from Virginia. Before I knew it, we were in Hopkinton, and I exited the bus feeling happy, centered, and ready to just chill out until go time. Until the moment that I realized my 4 raspberry hammer gels and 1 emergency espresso hammer gel had not joined me at my bus exit. Holy effing balls, this cannot be happening. Began my second inner monologue panic attack of the morning. Guys, there's a lot of food in Athletes Village, and it's provided by multiple companies that do, in fact, make food-type products, and yet no one was giving out gels there. Holy FMO. Don't worry, there will be power gel in the course at mile 17, chirped the lady in the power bar tent. I prayed for the self-control not to cry or punch her in the face. An hour later, thanks to the charity of a kind stranger in the bathroom line, and a lucky run-in with Wellesley's teammate Rebecca and her very generous friends, I was 3 goos the richer, but still feeling disheveled. I knew I had to get it together and stop wasting all of this energy on freaking out, or it was going to be bad news bears for sure. All right, so I can stop there. It goes on for a long time. But that's the story of how I left my goose on the bus and how my day started the day of the Boston Marathon.
Ugh.
It actually turned out pretty well considering the start to my day. But boy,
yeah, it's just,
start.
You really want everything to go as smoothly as possible, and so anything that offers like an additional road bump, given the ride to the Boston Commons, or even just missing the goose or anything.
I got in the cab and the guy was like, "Yeah, so all the roads are closed. How do you want to get there?" And I was like, "I'm going to need you to figure this out.
This is something you need to do, not me."
I'm very stressed out. I live in North Carolina. So
we don't take cabs very often.
We don't take cabs. We don't know where anything is in Boston.
I'm not going to be able to help you on this one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Are there any sections in the race report itself that you want to go over? I've heard a couple things, but are there any highlights besides kissing girls?
Well, that was one of my favorite highlights, and one of my biggest regrets. There are other regrets,
So you might need to give a little context.
All right, yeah, let's head over to that part of the blog.
You were definitely the first person to introduce this tradition to me. So I was enthralled once I heard about it. So
well, if you're unfamiliar, a time-honored tradition of the Boston Marathon at Wellesley, which is exactly the halfway point of the race. The streets are lined the whole way from Hopkinton to Boston in the Boston Marathon, but one of the particularly iconic places with regard to the crowd is Wellesley College. All the Wellesley girls are standing out there holding signs that say, "Kiss me, I'm from the state. Kiss me, it's my birthday. Kiss me, I'm gluten-free," whatever. And it is tradition to kiss the Wellesley girls. People say this is a tradition only for dudes. I'm a progressive woman, though. I don't buy that crap. And last year, as I was running Boston with my friend and her husband, my friend, she was like a demure, gray-haired librarian, very quiet, soft-spoken mother of 3. The best part of the whole race was watching her take the face of a Wellesley girl between her 2 hands and plant a giant smooch on her mouth in front of her husband. I was so taken aback and shocked and thrilled by all of this that I couldn't react to kissing you Wellesley girls of my own accord. So it was an important priority this year not to miss out on the tradition.
Critical.
Yeah. So I'll read you that part now. So, some backstory, and you should go to my blog to read the complete mile-by-mile color commentary play-by-play based on a highly scientific and technical race plan that I laid out for myself. That was the diagram I showed you. Yeah, it's in the Book of Bananas here. It's good stuff, guys. I'm considering starting a business developing these.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
So, this was the plan. Zoom in there, get a good look. It really worked like a charm. I mean, all the things that didn't go right were outside of the parameters of this plan.
I mean, you can't do better than that.
I really couldn't have.
I mean, Kiss. The kiss. Oh, so this is where we're at. I mean,
Yeah.
this is where the story happens. Is right
Yes.
at mile 13.
Thank you. Okay, so here we are, miles 9 through 16 on the plan. First, I'll tell you a little about my goal. So my goal, miles 9 through 16 of the Boston Marathon, which is roughly Natick through Wellesley, right before entering Newton. That's where the hills are, if you aren't familiar with the Boston Marathon. So my goals were to pick it up, but to stay comfortable. That was around a 7:35 pace for me. I wanted to avoid going through the half any faster than 1:39. That was the half split that was recommended on that really fantastic spreadsheet that calculates your every mile split for the whole race. I don't really believe in using those things during the race. I did spend some time studying it beforehand just to kind of outline some more specific parameters to put the plan in place.
Sure.
So yeah, but above all, it was important to smooch some Wellesley girls. So last year, my biggest regret surrounding last year's marathon was that this really magical display of all that's awesome about running and about Boston was violated by terrorists. I'm sure that was a big regret for all of us. My second biggest regret was finally making it to the #1 race on my running bucket list, only to walk away with a disappointing, mediocre performance. My third biggest regret was timidly letting this time-honored marathon tradition of kissing some Wellesley girls pass me by. Wellesley kissing redemption was far and away the most important priority on this portion of the checklist. So that's the plan. Here's what actually happened. As I look back on the mile splits on the Garmin for this section of the race, I realized that I was actually quite successful in sticking to the plan. But to be perfectly honest, I just wasn't paying that much attention to the mile splits as they were happening. I love the crowds that lined the street the entire way, but there was something especially happy about the hordes of people in Natick, who were miraculously spotted, high-fived, and dropped our very unnecessary arm warmers with my friend Karen's adorable parents. We could hear the roar of the screen tunnel. That's all the girls in Wellesley. A good mile before we approached it, I'm pretty sure I commented aloud that it was music to my ears. Before we knew it, it was time to pucker up for some serious girl kissing. My plan was to smooch the girls with the wittiest, most hilarious, and most creative signs, but I found myself coming up short on adequate brain power for both kissing and sign reading. I quickly resigned myself to simply kissing with reckless abandon. And those who I could not kiss, I high-fived. I'm pretty sure my friends Karen and Jen filled in all the kissing gaps I might have missed along the way. Later that evening, as we were rehashing our Wellesley kissing rampage over beers, my friend Jen commented that the only thing that might have made it more perfect would have been Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl blaring in the background over a loudspeaker somewhere. I smiled and assured her that that song was absolutely cranking full blast in my head while the smooch fest was happening. We came through the half somewhere around 1:42, and although not running the first 13.1 too fast was a major objective for me, I felt just the teeniest hint of concern at the fact that I was a whole 3 minutes behind the half split recommended by the aforementioned spreadsheet. That moment of doubt was fleeting, though. I wished my friends well shortly after the halftime we met and tried to dial in the last few miles at goal pace for this section to get back on track before hitting the hills. So, and then I listed my mile splits. That's probably less interesting for me to tell you about for the purposes of this interview.
For the purposes of this interview.
Yes.
Do you want to go through the final mile?
Yeah. That's another
end?
good part.
Good.
Yeah.
I don't believe I've actually heard this part, so this is going to be new to me.
Okay.
I'm waiting with great anticipation. I'm prepared.
All right. So
don't hold back.
We'll skip over the hills, although that part was really good too. I actually ran that part really well and was really pleased with the execution of that, which was awesome because it sucked so much last year. Oh my gosh, it was everything people said it would be and worse. Well, knowing what to expect was tremendous in successfully getting through the hills and a marathon as a whole. So, my goal through the hills, just to give you a little backstory, was pretty much try not to suck, I set the bar really low since it was so rough last year. And mission accomplished. I actually really looked forward to getting to the part of the race where I didn't have to focus on any specific pace. I just had to get through it without sucking. So that was all very successful. So the hills are roughly miles 16 through 21. Then mile 22, if you're familiar with the Boston Marathon course, is a large downhill. So down the other side of Heartbreak Hill, back into Boston College. It's a place where the crowd is really loud, really energetic. It's very easy to go too fast during that part and kind of use it all up before you get to that final 5 miles. And I'm pretty sure that's where I flushed it all down the toilet last year. So my goal from mile 22 was don't be a dumbass. Made it through there with a nice conservative split, 7:22 for that mile, so winning. Mission accomplished. So now I'll tell you a little about the 35K timing that through the finish. So it was officially goal time. So my goal at this point was to pick it up here. If there's anything left, go for it to finish strong. In reality, I almost executed this final part of the run to perfection. I've heard many reports that this was the part of the course where the crowd was the loudest and the most energetic. I don't doubt that this is accurate, but this was the point where the plan started to require all of my energy and focus, and my crowd interaction abilities started to wane. I did manage to hear a few encouraging words that were directed my way from the sidelines. Thanks, guys. I gave you all some shout-outs to my blog. And I was also pleasantly surprised to see some familiar faces from home. I actually ran into a couple friends that I know from Durham on the race course at that point. And it didn't occur to me now at the time, but looking back, I realized they started ahead of me. I was totally passing them. It was awesome. So I was uncertain as to whether or not I was on pace to hit my goal, which is 3:19:59. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but my time goal was to break 3:20. So I wasn't sure if I was on track for that, but I was blissfully aware that I was doing something that I had formerly believed to be impossible. I was negative splitting the crap out of the Boston Marathon. Self-5s for days, my blog reads in parentheses. I truly felt strong and fantastic right up to the moment when the Garmin chirped out the 25th mile split. And just like that, the jig was up. My rational brain suddenly realized that I had been running hard for a long time and warmer temperatures than I was accustomed to. And it insisted that I stop immediately. Shut up, rational brain! Screamed whatever other parts of my brain were left over. You only have 1 mile to go, and this is the best part. Don't dare F it up now. I envisioned myself savoring and relishing the iconic final turns, right on Hereford, left on Boylston, but it just didn't play out that way. Instead, my raging inner monologue continued, rational thinking versus heart and legs. Who the hell put this hill on Hereford? I could have sworn that wasn't here last year. I prayed not to walk as the finish came into view. OMG, they made that uphill this year too? Shenanigans! I mercifully crossed the finish line with 3:21 and some change on the watch, not caring one bit that it wasn't 3:19:59. I had done it. Despite coming up short on the goal, the plan had worked. I had given Boston my very best, and except for the last 1,000 meters or so, I had a wonderful time doing it. Recalling how that felt still gives me chills and brings tears to my eyes, even as I type this or read this, as the case may be today. So, that's it. That is the story of making it to the finish line. Oh, wait, there is more. But this is the part where I get kind of sad and emotional. Not sad, but yeah, do you want to hear about that too?
Dig into it.
All right, here we go, guys. So are you ready? This is the tear-jerking, heartwarming part, okay? I was completely caught off guard at the tremendous wave of emotion I felt when the guy calling out finishers' names announced to us that Mev had won. I'm oddly ashamed to admit this, but sometimes I feel like there just isn't very much of a connection between the running that I, the mid-pack social recreational runner, am doing, and that of the elites. My sole motivation in participating in races is just being a part of the humanity of it all, doing something fun that I love, shoulder to shoulder, with my fellow lycra-clad kindred spirits. I suppose I tend to jump to the conclusion that elite running is driven by winning and competition, motivations that are vastly different from my own. And there's undoubtedly at least some truth to that. But as I crossed the finish line in Boston that day, it dawned on me that in this race, Neb's and Shalene's motivation were exactly the same as mine, to give Boston their best race and to reclaim the finish line. Not to mention the fact that I've just been a little partial to Meb ever since last year's Boston Marathon Expo, when we ran into him at the mall at the Prudential Center as he was leaving. His public appearance was over, so he really didn't have any obligation to interact with us if he didn't want to. And he graciously took a good 10 minutes of his own time to give me a very sincere, mile by mile, how to run Boston pep talk. That fleeting encounter with him contained enough genuine authenticity and kindness to make me feel like my BFF had just won the Boston Marathon. All right, and I put in a video clip of them crossing the finish line, but I guess we can't really get way too display that for purposes of this interview. It's on the blog, guys. Check it out. Furthermore, I can't think of another time when feelings of pride and patriotism moved me to tears like they did at that moment. It seems unlikely that the city and people of Boston could have imagined in their wildest dreams a healing celebration as sweet and as perfect as the one they got on April 21st, 2014. And I know that being part of it will always be one of my very favorite memories. And to run a race that I was proud of and felt good about, particularly after rallying from a rocky start to my day, was just the most delicious icing on a big, beautiful, multi-tiered Boston Marathon cake. So cheers to a magical fairy tale comeback for Boston, for America, and even for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's my story. There are a few more non-running highlights, but I'll save those.
We don't want to give away all the secrets. I mean,
yeah.
This is a teaser. It's not a full rendition.
Right.
The book on tape will come out later.
Yes, audiobook coming soon.
I guess they don't do books on tape.
Custom marathon race plans sold separately. An MP3 book, maybe?
MP3 book.
You can download it on iTunes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Get ready to have the 99 cents roll in.
It's going to be good.
So, thanks for sharing. I really appreciate it. And everyone,
Thanks
make sure you go and check out their blog. Absolutely. And hopefully there will be some more installments of this.
Well, that's about 5,000 words worth of thoughts on the Boston Marathon. So, my next blog post will probably be on a different topic, but
no way, exclusively Boston Marathon topics from here on out.
Oh, is that the new rule?
The new rule.
All right, I'm going to change the name of the blog to Fast and Fabulous :
Boston
Tales of the Boston Marathon.
TAILS or TALES?
TALES.
Okay, classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks, Matt.